Hi everyone. Today I am in one of my favorite restaurants, Rubio, which is a vegetarian vegan restaurant, and I'm having a cafe latte. And I just finished having some falafel. I had some soup, which was like cauliflower soup, some potatoes. It was very good. Anyway, today I'm going to talk to you about the healthcare system here in the Czech Republic. Now, there are a lot more details that cannot be covered in this video because it's, a lot of different categories, a lot of different things. So, and it's a vast subject. So, what I can do is I can only go by my experience. Okay. First, before I get into the weeds of it all, first, before I get into the weeds of it all, let me say that I have been taken care of in this system a few times already. Once in 2018, I had bad bronchitis. I talked about this in another video on another channel before, and it went into almost pneumonia, and I had difficulty breathing. And I was still working in the medical field at that time in the US. And while I was being taken care of, I was cognizant of what was going on around me in the emergency room. And I was also checking out everything to see what kind of equipment and things that they had, that they were using, kind of technology. And I noticed that they had all the very same equipment, the very same technology that I was using every day on my job in critical care and in the recovery room in the United States. Okay. Then, anyway, so I was in the ER and I had IVs, EKGs, I had a doctor consultation, x-rays, I had an ultrasound, medications, prescriptions, and my final bill was less than $100. Now, at that time, I didn't have check insurance because I was just visiting, and I was visiting, people, and so therefore, I still had my American health insurance that reimbursed me in the end. But what I want to say is that at that time, the Czech doctor had found something on my left lung. I had a nodule. I had a lung nodule that the doctors in the United States had missed. And I couldn't understand how they had missed it because every year I was having x-rays as part of my job or TB tests. And they should have caught it, actually. When I went back to the United States, I had to fight to get what they had found checked out by my regular doctor. He said, he didn't want to put the CD into his computer because he said he might get a virus in his computer. He refused to look at it. So I said, well, what if I bring my computer in and put the CD in and show you? And then he still said, no, I can't use their information. I have to work you up myself. And so why don't we just start with an x-ray? In about 4 or 5 months, you'll come back. If there's something there, and I'll have you do an MRI. And I was like, no, because the Czech doctors had told me that I need to have an MRI as soon as I got home, because I was due to leave and come home soon. So what happened was that he wanted to work me up through the system. We're going for x-ray, waiting for those results, another few months, come back, maybe talk to for a consultation, another doctor maybe who might or might not order MRI. And so I didn't want to do that, because like I said, the docs here in the Czech Republic told me that I need to have MRI as soon as I get home. And as you know, with these kind of things, time is of the essence, where something like this can either, if it's serious, metastasize, or it can grow, and sometimes months. And the waiting in months can mean a difference in whether, it's life or death. So I didn't want to wait. So what did I do? Well, since I was working with intensivists and surgeons and pulmonologists every day in my job, I put the CD in my computer at home, took screenshots, and I put it on my phone. And then one day when I was at work, I asked one of my coworkers, surgeons, who's a general surgeon, to take a look at what I had on my phone, and I told him the whole story. Well, he took a look at it and he blew it up on the phone as big as he could and everything. And then he told me, he said, I'm going to send you right now for an MRI. And he ordered all kind of tests, MRIs, with contrast, without, everything. So that day, that very same day, I went for all my imaging and I had it done. And that began a whirlwind time span with a pulmonologist specialist and every test and every scan that you could imagine. And it was a very scary period. And I had to follow up with MRIs every year for about 4 or 5 years. And then later, after about the fourth, fifth year, I think it was, then I was cleared. Everything was okay. But why do I say all this? I say all this that if I, someone who was working directly in the medical field, had to go through the back door and be a very strong advocate for myself, because no one cares about your life as much as you do. So then if I had to do that and I was working in the field, then what must a layperson who doesn't have access to a surgeon going through the back door, what can they do? It's a very difficult system. So also there was this baby that was in the UK that they flew to the Czech Republic. It was a few years ago, maybe about 5 years ago also, for some specialized surgery that they could only do here in the Czech Republic. So I have found that the doctors here are very knowledgeable and skilled. And if you look at this chart that ranks healthcare in countries, and I'm going to put up right here, then you will see in 2024, the Czech Republic was number 28 on the list. Also, I saw another graph where it was number 20. So, over the years, it fluctuates up, down a little bit. But what's important is that the United States healthcare system was number 69 on this list, way down on number 69. In the United States, we have all the greatest equipment and everything. We have great doctors and stuff there too. But everybody knows what the difficulties are with the American healthcare system. So anyway, I just want to say that the Czech Republic, healthcare in the Czech Republic, it consistently ranks well as for the quality of the healthcare. Now that you know how the system works, let me tell you what happens when you arrive here. Well, when you arrive here, whether you came on a long-term visa, family reunification like I did, or you applied for your long-term residency visa through an embassy from whatever country you're in. But once you get here, you have to go to the MOI, which is the Ministry of Information, and you have to apply for your residency card. You have to apply for your temporary residency card. In order to even apply, you have to have your health insurance policy already prepaid to show them. So, and it can't just be any old policy. It has to be one of the companies that is accepted in the Czech Republic. And it needs to be paid in full for at least 2 years. Now, married couples, people that are married to Czech natives, they can pay from year to year. They didn't have to pay for the whole 2 years or whatever up front. But if you're coming because you have a spouse from another country that is here, your insurance policy will need to be for as long as the length of a visa that your spouse has that you're coming to reunite with. And also, so like if your spouse is working here temporarily for 2 years, then your policy needs to be 2 years. They're going to be here for 5 years. Your policy needs to be here for 5 years. And I'm not sure if it's going to be renewable after 2 years at a time, or you got to do the whole 5 years, because that's a little different from my status. Mine, I bought 1 year at a time, because if you're married to a Czech native, you can do that. So anyway, also, once you apply and you get your, I think it's called an OBE, it's like a tracking number that you actually applied to the MOI for your residency card. And it'll take about 3 months to even a year, depending on the status of your Przechodni Pobyt, which is the temporary residency card, to be approved. So usually the temporary residency cards are valid for 3 years. The other thing is that people that are married to Czech natives can apply for their permanent residency after their 2 years of temporary residency, but other non-EU residents, they can apply for permanent residency after 5 years of temporary residency. And I'm not going to talk about EU residents because they also have different rules, and I'm not covering that in this video. Anyway, after your 2 years or 5 years, depending on whatever your status is, then you can apply for your permanent residency. And once you have your permanent residency card, which is called a Trvalý Pobyt, then you can apply to be on the public healthcare system of the country. The cost is a certain amount monthly, and that's based on your status as whether you're employed, unemployed, or you're a business owner, maybe student or something. And so then you'll have a set amount that you need to pay monthly to participate in the healthcare system. And currently my spouse pays about 2,800 crowns, Czech crowns, which comes out up to roughly about $120 a month or so. My spouse is 50 years old. So anyway, I am still living out my second year. So at the end of this second year that I'm in now, I can then apply for my permanent residency, my Trvalý Pobyt, and my temporary card still be good for another year after that. So I'll have that to fall back on in case the permanent doesn't get approved. But anyway, so I can apply for the permanent residency at the end of this year, actually. And then at that point, I can also apply to be on the country's healthcare system and pay whatever I need to pay every month. Now, finding a doctor when you have your temporary, even permanent residency can be a little challenging because first you need to find a doctor in your area that accepts new patients, and then you have to find one that accepts the insurance you have. And then if you can't speak the language, of course, you want one who speaks English. Well, there are more options for this in bigger cities like Prague, a few in Brno, and hardly none to zero in smaller villages and towns. But I got lucky because my spouse called around and was calling for me and was able to secure and converse with a doctor who did agree to take me on as their patient. And my doctor speaks enough English with me to converse with me, and I'm progressing in the target language enough so that I can do more and understand more now. At the doctor's appointment, there's, from my experience, when I have something I want to see my doctor about, I make an appointment like normal, and then I can also go to the doctor and sign in and wait to see them for something if I don't have an appointment, or for something acute. If it's really serious, then of course I can go to one of the hospitals around my area. So then, but so far my doctor's been able to handle all my situations. My certain medications, like my blood pressure medications that I was on in the United States, they didn't have it here, but they did have a derivative of it. And then my doctor lowered my blood pressure medications because she said that they had me on actually too high a dose in the United States. So I've been on this decreased dose for like over a year now, and I seem to be doing just fine. I've had lab works, and it's no co-pays, doctor visits, no co-pays, and that's just something that's not covered. But so far, everything's been pretty much covered. And when I need my prescription renewed, I can email or call my doctor, and then I can receive a barcode prescription text back. And then I just take it to the pharmacy and show it to them, and they get my prescription, and they give me all the instructions that I need. I think I paid like 53 crowns, which came out to $2.33 for a 3-month supply, as you can see in this photo here. And so I feel healthier. I have no health problems. I feel very well taken care of by my doctor. And when I came here, of course, I was already postmenopausal. I always had the hardest time in the United States to see my gynecologist for my primary care and my postmenopausal care. follow up with testing things as my body changed. Well, my doctor here ordered all those things like bone density scans and hormone tests and all those things that I could never get in to see my gynecologist for because she was always so busy doing C-sections and other things that she rarely even had time to see her regular patients. And therefore, they always had you just see like nurse practitioners or some PA or something. So I never really could see my doctor that I needed. All in all, this is how the system works in the Czech Republic. I'm very satisfied with it. And it's a pretty simple system after all. And that's my video, and that's all I gotta say.